When I was 10, my cousin Leah once told me I'd be lucky if I ever got invited to a family event that mattered. She said it right after pushing me out of the frame during a group photo at her birthday party, like I was some extra in the background of her main character moment. I remember standing there, holding a slice of cake I hadn't touched, wondering what I did wrong. I wasn't loud or flashy like her, or her little sister Claire. I was just there, the quiet cousin. The one people forgot existed until chairs needed moving or dishes needed clearing. Over time, I learned to stop expecting anything from that side of the family. It was easier to pretend you didn't care than to admit it stung. Now I'm 29. My name's Adam, and I manage one of the busiest upscale wedding venues in our area. It's the kind of job that means long hours, intense weekends, and the ability to spot a bridezilla from 5 emails away. I started out as an assistant, then slowly moved up over the years. I know the building like the back of my hand. Every creaky floorboard, every vendor quirk, every little behind-the-scenes trick to make events run like clockwork. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. I'm good at it. I've earned my place. I hadn't seen Leah in years. Not since Grandma's funeral 5 years ago, when she showed up an hour late, wearing white and crying louder than anyone else. Her tears dried up pretty fast when the will was read, and it turned out Grandma left most of her estate to charity. Leah stormed out, muttering about how she deserved something for all the time she spent visiting. Funny how none of us ever saw her at the hospital. So when I ran into Leah at a distant cousin's engagement party this past summer, I almost didn't recognize her. Same sharp jawline and perfectly arched brows, but now paired with a massive diamond ring. She kept flashing around like it had GPS tracking. I was standing by the drinks table when she walked up, grinned like we were best friends, and said, "Adam? Wow, it's been forever. You look well. Still working at that hotel, or whatever?" "It's a wedding venue," I said, keeping my tone flat. "Yeah, I still work there." "Oh, right." She waved her hand like that explained everything. "That place with the fountains and the giant oak tree. I went to a wedding there last fall. It was all right. Little stuffy. The food was kind of meh." I didn't bother correcting her. We'd actually renovated since last fall, brought in a new chef who'd won a regional award, and bookings had never been higher. But she wasn't interested in facts. She was scanning the room again, already losing interest. "So," I said, keeping it casual, "you're engaged?" She lit up like a Christmas tree. "Yup. Can't believe you haven't heard. Mason proposed in Cancun. Private beach. Champagne. Whole thing was straight out of a movie. Wedding's in October. It's going to be the event of the year." "Nice," I nodded. "Where's it happening?" That's when she did it. That little pause. The flicker of a smirk pulling at the corner of her mouth. She tilted her head just slightly, like she was trying to look concerned. "Oh, you weren't invited, were you?" Her voice dipped in mock confusion, like I had somehow misplaced an invitation instead of never being on the list to begin with. I blinked once, then gave a small shrug. "Guess not." She leaned in a little. "Yeah, I mean, we're keeping it super tight, you know? Just close family and friends. You know how expensive weddings are these days. I'm sure you get it." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Totally. Makes sense." What I didn't say, what I didn't need to say, was that I had access to the venue's booking system. I'd been promoted to manager just 3 weeks earlier, and I had personally approved every fall wedding date, including one under the name of Leah's fiancé, Mason T. Same last name she had plastered all over her Pinterest boards. I excused myself a few minutes later, not bothering with a goodbye. On the drive home, I kept replaying the look on her face when she said it. That smug, practiced condescension. The way she wanted me to feel small. Forgotten. Insignificant. Like I'd always be the quiet background cousin who never quite made it into the main frame. She had no idea. And that's when something started to shift. Not anger, exactly. More like clarity. I wasn't going to scream, confront her, or cause a scene. That wasn't me. But I'd been in the wedding business long enough to know that sometimes you don't need to shout to change the entire tone of a story. Sometimes, all you need is the right detail in the right place at the right time. And it just so happened. Leah had left quite a few of those details behind. 1 week later, I was combing through upcoming bookings on a late Friday shift when I clicked open her file. Mason's name was listed on the contract, but Leah's email was attached to all the correspondence. They'd gone for our premium package, garden ceremony, ballroom reception, firework display included. Estimated guest count, 180. Date, October 14th. Deposit. Paid. But something caught my eye. In the notes from our finance coordinator, there was a short memo. Previous chargebacks flagged from client's billing history. Double check with management before final confirmation. It was an internal note. Would never be visible to the client, but it made me pause. I pulled up the report. Apparently, Leah, or Mason, had disputed charges from 2 other events in the past 3 years. 1 birthday bash, 1 corporate dinner. Both fully attended, both catered, both flagged as unauthorized after the fact. Our venue hadn't been involved in either, but we subscribed to a shared vendor alert system for exactly this reason. Clients like that? They were high risk. Now, normally, we give people the benefit of the doubt. But combined with the size of the event, the unpaid balance, and the previous pattern of behavior, it was enough for me to tag the booking as requires manual reconfirmation, which meant it would go through an extra layer of scrutiny. And if any red flags popped up between now and final payment, we'd have every right to cancel under our contract's risk clause. Of course, I didn't touch anything else. Didn't change the date. Didn't reach out. I just let it sit there. A ticking clock. Quiet. Patient. 2 weeks passed, and then came the final blow. Their payment bounced. Not once, but twice. And when our system flagged it for the 3rd time, Leah emailed in directly, furious, demanding someone fix this stupid error. She claimed the bank was at fault, that our system was glitching, that she knew people and would make sure we lost our license if this wasn't resolved immediately. She even tried calling. Twice. I let it go to voicemail. Then she showed up in person. That was the moment everything started shifting fast, and the moment I knew exactly how far I was willing to let this go. I don't think I've ever seen someone walk into a building so confidently while being so completely unaware of how bad things were about to get. Leah strolled into the venue wearing oversized sunglasses, a white fitted blazer, and heels that clacked across the marble floor like she was doing a runway show. I was at the front desk that day, not because I needed to be, but because I'd seen her name on the visitor log an hour earlier and decided to stick around. Part of me wanted to stay professional, keep my distance, and let our events coordinator handle it. But the other part? The one that still remembered being shoved out of family photos and hearing secondhand that I wasn't wedding worthy. Yeah, that part wanted front row seats. She didn't recognize me at first. I wasn't surprised. I was dressed in a navy blazer, wearing a name tag that simply said, Adam, event manager. To her, I probably looked like any other staff member. Replaceable. Invisible. Just another person to bark demands at. I need to speak with someone about a payment issue, she said briskly, pulling off her sunglasses and placing them on the counter. The system keeps glitching and no one's returning my emails. Frankly, it's unacceptable. We're 2 months out. I nodded, playing dumb. Do you have a reservation number? She sighed. It's under Mason Thompson. October 14th. Premium garden and ballroom package. You'll see it. I typed it in, slowly, and gave a small frown. Looks like the system flagged your file for review. There were a few failed payments, and there's a history note that puts the account under higher scrutiny. It's standard protocol. Leah scoffed. History note? What does that even mean? We paid the deposit, and now you people are threatening to cancel? We haven't canceled anything, I said calmly. But we do require full payment by the due date. And our system flagged prior chargebacks under your billing name, which automatically delays confirmation until it's cleared up. She went quiet for a beat. Her eyes narrowed. That's a lie. There were no chargebacks. I turned the monitor slightly, not enough to breach privacy rules, but enough to show her the bolded red text at the top of the file. High-risk client. Manual reconfirmation required. Her face turned crimson. This is a mistake, she snapped. I want a manager. Now. I looked her straight in the eye and said, You're speaking to him. That's when she recognized me. Her eyebrows furrowed. She leaned forward, squinting at my name tag, and then gave me a once-over like she was seeing me for the first time. Wait, Adam. I smiled politely. Hi, Leah. She blinked. You work here. I manage the entire venue, I said. Congratulations on the engagement, by the way. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked like she'd just bit into a lemon. So, you're the one who's been holding up our booking? I kept my tone even. Not holding it up. Just following policy. She stood there, clearly trying to calculate her next move. I could almost hear the gears turning behind her eyes. Then, just like that, the switch flipped. Her posture softened. Her tone changed. Adam, she said sweetly. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. I didn't realize you were working here. That's amazing. Good for you. Honestly, can't believe how far you've come. I gave a polite nod, but I didn't return the compliment. She kept going. I'm sure this is just a glitch. I mean, we're family, right? Can't you just fast-track it or something? I'll call the bank. I'll make sure the payment goes through today. I let the silence hang for just a second too long. It's not about the payment anymore, I said finally. Once a file is flagged, it has to be reviewed by the board. And since there are multiple failed attempts and no record of resolution from the bank, it's out of my hands. That was a lie. It was entirely in my hands. But I wasn't about to tell her that. She forced a laugh. Come on, Adam. Don't be like that. We're family. Funny how that word only came out when she wanted something. She hadn't spoken to me in 5 years, hadn't invited me to her engagement dinner or bridal shower. And now suddenly we were family? I handed her a card with the contact email for our review committee. You can submit a formal appeal, I said. That's the best I can do right now. She snatched the card, muttering something under her breath, then stormed out. The heels didn't clack as confidently on the way back. That should have been the end of it. But of course, with Leah, it never is. 2 days later, I started getting text messages from family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey Adam, heard there was some mix-up with Leah's wedding? Any way you can help smooth it out? You work at that fancy venue, right? Leah said they're trying to cancel for no reason. That's crazy. She's been crying for days, man. Come on. You can fix this. I didn't respond to any of them. The silence felt like armor. Then my aunt, Leah's mother, called me directly. Adam, sweetheart, I know things have been tense with the family over the years, but can we please put that aside? Leah is so stressed. This wedding means the world to her. You have no idea how hard she's worked. I almost laughed. Aunt Cheryl, I appreciate you reaching out, but there are policies we follow. If Leah resolves the outstanding issue, there's no reason the wedding can't go ahead. There was a pause. Then her voice turned cold. Are you punishing her? Is that what this is? I bit my tongue. Hard. I'm doing my job. You always were the quiet one, she snapped. The one who couldn't take a joke. Maybe if you stopped taking things so personally, you'd understand what family means. That stuck with me longer than I care to admit. Because the thing is, she wasn't entirely wrong. I had taken things personally for most of my life. The birthdays I wasn't invited to. The group texts I was left off. The fact that my name was always the one forgotten during holiday gift exchanges. I'd spent most of my adult life trying not to let it hurt. But now I had leverage. And I hadn't even used it yet. The real turning point came a week later, when I found out Leah had booked a dress rehearsal at the venue without notifying me. She'd gone through one of our junior assistants, someone who had no idea about the account issues. Scheduled a walkthrough of the ballroom and the garden on a Saturday morning. I was already at work when I saw the name pop up on the schedule. I called the assistant immediately. Cancel it, I said. But she's already on the way. Cancel it. Lock the ballroom. Sure enough, 30 minutes later, security called me to the front. Leah had arrived in full hair and makeup, dragging her maid of honor and 2 other girls behind her, all in matching pink silk robes. It looked like they were filming a reality show. Adam, she said, throwing her arms out. So good to see you again. We were just heading to the garden. It's not available, I said. She blinked. Excuse me. There's no reservation on file. And your account is still under review. You're not authorized for walkthroughs at this time. Her smile slipped. This is ridiculous. I confirmed it with. The assistant made a mistake. I've corrected it. The maid of honor leaned in. Seriously? We took the morning off for this. I looked Leah in the eye. You should have cleared it first. That's when she cracked. You're doing this on purpose, she hissed. You're jealous. You always were. Just because no one cared about your little achievements doesn't mean you get to ruin my wedding. There it was. The moment she said it, I knew there was no going back. All the years of being overlooked, dismissed, made to feel invisible, they crystallized into something sharp and clear. And I wasn't going to hold back anymore. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten her. I just smiled and said, maybe you should have invited me. She turned on her heel and stormed out, practically dragging her friends behind her. I watched them go, then turned to security. If she comes back without written approval, she doesn't get past the lobby. And just like that, things were set in motion. The thing is, Leah had no idea what was actually coming. And the next move? It wasn't mine. I didn't think one family wedding could derail so much of my life. The night after Leah's failed dress rehearsal, my phone blew up again. But this time, it wasn't just extended family calling to guilt me. It was my mom. And when I say she was livid, I mean she sounded like she was 2 seconds from driving to my apartment and banging on the door. "Adam, what are you doing?" she demanded before I could even say hello. "Did you really cancel Leah's walkthrough?" "She's devastated." Cheryl called me crying. "Mom, she never had clearance to be there. Her payment's still in dispute, and she's been flagged for past chargebacks." I didn't cancel anything. I enforced the policy. My mom's silence was deafening. Then, she said, "You're using your position to get back at her for not inviting you." Is that true? I felt like I'd been slapped. Not because she asked, but because of how easily she believed it. Do you honestly think I would jeopardize my job over a petty grudge? "I don't know, Adam," she said, voice tight. "You've always been a little sensitive." There it was. That word. Sensitive. The same label I've been stuck with since middle school, when I stopped trying to fight back against my louder, meaner cousins and just withdrew instead. When I'd get quiet at family dinners because every time I opened my mouth, someone had a joke ready. When I started skipping birthday parties entirely and no one really noticed. "You know what?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not having this conversation." "Adam." I said no. And I hung up. I don't hang up on my mom. I never have. I stared at the screen for a long time afterward, hands shaking, heart thudding like I'd run a mile. Over the next few days, everything got worse. I was getting cold shoulders from multiple family members. My uncle, who'd once promised to help me get a side gig at his marketing firm, texted me a single word: disappointed. My cousin Sam removed me from the fantasy football league. My own mother didn't respond to any of my messages. It was like I'd been silently excommunicated. The worst part? For a while, I believed maybe I had gone too far. What if I was being spiteful? What if they were right? What if the kid who got pushed out of group photos had turned into an adult who let bitterness creep into his professionalism? I started second-guessing everything. At work, I double-checked every event file, triple-checked every client status. I stopped joking with the staff. I ate lunch alone at my desk. I stayed later than necessary and left feeling like I had a boulder on my chest. Then came the final blow. We hosted a corporate wedding planning conference at the venue, big names from all over the region. I was scheduled to present on vendor-client risk management. It should have been a proud moment. Instead, an hour before I was supposed to go on stage, my general manager called me into his office. "Adam," he said carefully, "I need to talk to you about a complaint we received." My stomach dropped. "It's from a woman named Cheryl Thompson. Claims that you intentionally interfered with her daughter's wedding planning. Says you're abusing your position, and that she plans to go public." I closed my eyes. "Sir, that's not true. There's a clear policy trail. I've documented everything. The chargebacks, the failed payments, the unauthorized walkthrough." "I know," he said, holding up a hand. "I've reviewed it. You followed protocol." "But Adam," he paused, steepling his fingers. "When you're in management, perception matters. Even when you're right." I wanted to scream. "So what does that mean?" "It means for the time being, we're going to reassign your high-profile accounts. Let things cool off. You'll still have your title. Same pay. But I think it's best if you step back from the Thompson file entirely." It felt like a punishment. A subtle one, sure, but it stung. I wanted to argue, but I knew it wouldn't help. He was protecting the business. He wasn't wrong. But it still felt like I was being told to sit at the kids' table. Again, I walked out of the office and skipped the conference presentation entirely. I went home, closed my laptop, turned off my phone, and lay on the floor of my apartment staring at the ceiling until it was dark. That was rock bottom. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was just quiet, hollow, like all the air had been sucked out of my world. I stayed in that place for a few days. Showed up to work, did the bare minimum, went home. I avoided my family, ignored the group chats, left my mom's messages unread. It was like I hit pause on my whole life. But then something weird happened. One of the junior staffers, Julia, knocked on my office door a few days later. I barely looked up. "Hey," she said. "Just wanted to say, I saw what happened with that client last week. And for what it's worth, you handled it better than I would have." I blinked. "Thanks, but it doesn't feel like it." She gave me a sad smile. "Still, just wanted you to know." That tiny gesture cracked something open. I realized I wasn't alone. I realized that my silence, my retreat, it wasn't helping anyone, especially not me. So I started climbing back. Slowly, I pulled up the Thompson file and went through it line by line. Not to sabotage, not to interfere, but to make sure everything I'd done was by the book. I documented every step. I created a spreadsheet with timestamps, communications, staff notes. I backed everything up on our internal system. If Leah or Cheryl wanted to escalate, I'd be ready. Then I started working with Julia on a training packet for junior staff, how to handle flagged accounts, how to maintain neutrality, how to document risk cases. I pitched it to my GM, and he approved it for rollout next quarter. Bit by bit, I found my footing again. I didn't try to fight the family silence. I accepted it. I stopped checking the group chat. I blocked Leah on Instagram. I put my head down and focused on doing what I did best, running events that made people feel like they were living their best day. We hosted a wedding in late August for a couple who had eloped during the pandemic and were finally celebrating with family. The bride's father pulled me aside afterward, tears in his eyes, and said, "You made this feel like magic." I almost cried right there. It reminded me why I got into this business in the first place. Not for the chandeliers or the paycheck or even the power, but for the chance to give people moments that mattered. I stopped needing to prove anything to Leah, or Cheryl, or anyone else who thought I'd never amount to more than the quiet cousin. I'd built something, and even if no one clapped for me at the family reunion, I was still standing. But just when I thought the storm had passed, something showed up in my inbox. An anonymous tip. A forwarded email chain between Leah and a friend. The subject line, "Getting around cancellation fees, LOL." And what I read changed everything. The email chain was forwarded to me anonymously from a burner Gmail address. No name, no signature. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But the subject line made me pause. "Your cousin is planning to screw your venue. Thought you'd want to know." My hands hovered over the trackpad. I clicked. What opened was a conversation between Leah and someone named Jasmine B., who I later found out was one of her bridesmaids. It looked like Jasmine had screenshot their messages from a shared Dropbox folder that Leah must have been using to plan her wedding. The text was formatted clumsily, like a copy-paste job, but it was all there. "Leah, so update. Mason's card got flagged again, but it's fine. I have a workaround." Jasmine, "A girl how?" Leah, "You remember Claire's old company card from the salon she left? Still active." Jasmine, "What?" Leah, "They never deactivated it, LOL. I booked the fireworks and the rentals on it. We're good." Jasmine, "Isn't that illegal?" Leah, "Girl, please. They can't prove anything. Worst case, I cancel the charges after the wedding. It's not like the venue can take it out of our hands by then." Jasmine, "Damn." Leah, "Also, Adam tried to cancel our walkthrough last week. Don't worry. I just rebooked it under Claire's fiancé's name this time. He's listed as the planner. Now they won't know the difference." Leah, "And anyway, once we're there, it's too late. They won't kick us out on the day. Even Adam isn't that petty." Leah, "Let him try though. We'll see who ends up with egg on their face." I sat back in my chair, heart pounding. I thought I was done. I thought I had taken the high road. Focused on my work. Let the family drama fade into static. But this was fraud. Financial deception. Intentional manipulation of our internal system. And the worst part? She was daring me to stop her. She was betting on the fact that no one would risk ruining a wedding in motion. That no manager would shut down a ceremony mid-reception. That even I, quiet little cousin Adam, wouldn't dare. She was wrong. I forwarded the email to our compliance officer immediately, along with my notes and a formal report. Then I asked to meet with my general manager behind closed doors. When I showed him the screenshots, he whistled low. She really thought we wouldn't find out. She's assuming we won't act. Because of the optics. He raised an eyebrow. "You planning something?" I nodded. "I'd like to handle it. Quietly. Legally. But decisively." He leaned back in his chair, considering me. "You're walking a tightrope, Adam. Are you ready for that?" "I've never been more ready." He gave me a slow smile. "Then let's make it ironclad." Over the next 3 weeks, I became a ghost in the machine. I combed through every aspect of Leah's booking, every vendor she used, every contact name, every alternate ID she tried to slip into our system. And it wasn't just the old salon credit card. She'd submitted 3 different email aliases under different planning agencies, all with slight misspellings to avoid flagging. I'd dealt with scammers before, but seeing it come from my own cousin made it hit different. I worked with our legal team to tighten our contract clauses, especially the one that allowed us to cancel or halt events at any stage if fraud or unauthorized payments were discovered. Then I scheduled a quiet internal meeting with every key department: events, catering, security, even the valet service. No drama, no theatrics, just facts. October 14th, Thompson Tate wedding. Flagged as high risk. If you receive any changes from outside the approved contacts list, route them through me. If there are any walk-ins or unlisted guests trying to access the property early, call security. Are we expecting issues? Asked one of the catering staff. We're expecting to be prepared, I said. And I was. I even reached out to the firework vendor Leah had mentioned. Turns out she had booked them under Claire's old business name, but hadn't submitted final payment. I flagged the account for cancellation and sent them a formal notice that we could not authorize setup on the venue's grounds unless they verified the payment source. I CC'd our lawyer on every email. Paper trail, just in case. Then came the final piece. I reached out to Claire. Now, Claire and I had barely spoken since childhood. She was Leah's younger sister, quieter, a little awkward, often overshadowed by Leah's hurricane personality. But I remembered her being kind, thoughtful. I figured if there was any chance of someone siding with reality over blood loyalty, it was her. I messaged her on Facebook. Kept it short. Hey Claire, it's Adam. I need to talk to you about something important, privately. It involves Leah and a company card she used under your name. Can we talk? She responded 2 hours later. What did she do this time? That's all I needed. We met at a small cafe downtown. She looked tired, worn down. There was a nervous energy in her posture, like someone constantly bracing for emotional whiplash. I showed her the email chain. She didn't even flinch. She used my old card? She muttered. Unbelievable. Do you still have access to the account? I don't. The business was dissolved 2 years ago. But if the card's still active, that means the auto-renewals were never shut off. I'm liable, aren't I? Only if you don't report it, I said gently. She rubbed her forehead. She promised me she wasn't using it. Said she'd double-checked. Said I was being paranoid. I waited. Finally, she sighed. What do you need from me? Just the truth, I said. I'm not trying to ruin her life. But I need to protect this venue. And frankly, she brought this on herself. Claire nodded. You'll have it. With Claire's written statement, the screenshots, the vendor records, and internal system logs, our legal team greenlit a formal cancellation notice. We weren't sending it yet. We'd wait for the final trigger. But everything was in place. And then, as if by divine timing, Leah sent in one final request. She wanted to increase the guest list by 40 people. Unapproved. Over capacity. And, once again, submitted under a different email alias. That was the final straw. We hit send. A formal cancellation letter was emailed to Leah's official contact address, and physical copies were mailed via certified delivery. The message was clear, concise, and legal. Due to multiple confirmed violations of our contract, including fraudulent payment methods, falsified vendor contacts, and unauthorized booking alterations, the venue has no choice but to cancel your reservation effective immediately. Your deposit has been forfeited. Any attempt to access the property on or near the original event date will be considered trespassing. 2 days later, I received a single, one-line email. You just ruined the biggest day of my life. You're dead to this family. I read it, then deleted it. No reply. Because the truth was, the biggest day of her life was never about love. It was about spectacle, performance, control. And I had just taken that stage away from her. But this story wasn't over. Because weddings? They're not just about the day. They're about the fallout. And I had a front row seat for everything that came next. I didn't hear anything for a while after the cancellation notice went out. No new emails. No calls. No passive-aggressive voicemails from my Aunt Cheryl. Just silence. And I'll admit, for a few days, that silence made me uneasy. Leah wasn't the type to go down without a tantrum. She wasn't wired that way. I half expected her to storm the venue again in a white dress and stilettos, demanding someone unlock the gates. But nothing happened, until the knock on my office door. It was a Friday afternoon, 2 weeks before her original wedding date, and I was just finishing a call with one of our lighting vendors when my assistant poked her head in. There's a woman here to see you. She says it's urgent. Who is it? She wouldn't say, but she's dressed for something. Dressed was putting it mildly. I walked out to the reception, and there she was, Leah? In full glam, makeup professionally done, a white cocktail dress that screamed bridal brunch, and a face like she was about to spit fire. Behind her stood a man I didn't recognize. Later I found out it was Mason's brother, but at that moment, I didn't care. I stepped forward calmly. Leah. Adam. Her voice was low, furious. You're going to fix this. Now. I don't think there's anything to fix. She stepped closer. You don't get to ruin my wedding just because you're bitter. Do you have any idea what you've done? I do, I said evenly. I followed protocol. You violated a contract. You used fraudulent payment methods. You impersonated vendors. And you tried to override your own cancellation notice with fake aliases. I have it all documented. Her face went red. You don't understand. This isn't just my wedding. There are people flying in. Deposits placed. Gifts already delivered. You can't do this to me. I already did, I said quietly. And Leah? You did it to yourself. She opened her mouth, then shut it. She turned to the man behind her, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. He's lying. He's just doing this because I didn't invite him. This is revenge. The man looked at me. Is that true? I didn't even blink. Ask her about the credit card from Claire's old salon. Ask her about booking vendors under fake names. Ask her how many times her payments bounced. He stared at Leah. She stared at me. I swear to God, she hissed. You're dead to this family. I've heard that one before. And I walked away. That weekend, word got around. Fast. Not just to the family, but beyond. Turns out Leah had built her wedding up into something of a spectacle. She had a hashtag, a countdown, a custom website that had been sending save the dates for months. She'd told people it was the wedding of the season. Even booked an influencer package with a local photographer to make sure every moment was captured for Instagram. Now, she had no venue, no backup, and less than 2 weeks to scramble. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything online. I didn't say a word to anyone who hadn't directly asked. But I did hear things. The new venue she tried to book, a budget place an hour outside of town, wanted full payment up front and wouldn't allow outside vendors. Leah tried to get around it by claiming she had press connections, but the owner wasn't impressed. Denied. Then she tried to move it to her parents' backyard. Rented a tent, hired a landscaping crew, even tried to order custom flooring to cover the pool. 2 days before the wedding, the weather report called for thunderstorms. Severe ones. She scrambled again, this time trying to split the ceremony and reception between 2 separate locations. But half the guests had already canceled. Flights couldn't be changed. One of her bridesmaids backed out entirely. And then came the cherry on top. Claire. Turns out Claire hadn't just given me a written statement. She'd also called the police. Because after she checked the old salon account, she found out Leah had racked up more than $4,000 in unauthorized charges over the past 3 months, ranging from flower deposits to audio equipment rentals. And Claire? She was still legally listed as the card holder. The fraud report went through. The bank froze the card. The police followed up. Now look, I don't know the full legal fallout. I wasn't involved beyond submitting my documentation when asked. But I did hear that Leah's accounts were reviewed, and her social media influencer sponsorships? All pulled. No brand wanted to be associated with a bride under investigation for credit card fraud. Her dream wedding collapsed like a house of cards. I wish I could say the family rallied around reason. That Aunt Cheryl called to apologize. That someone admitted Leah had crossed a line and I had just done my job. But that's not how it went. The silence stayed. A few relatives unfollowed me on Facebook. 1 or 2 blocked me. My mom didn't bring it up, not even once, but she did call me for lunch a month later and asked how work was going. I knew it was her version of a peace offering. I accepted it. Some things you just let be. But here's what mattered. I'd done the right thing. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. But because I finally understood the difference between being quiet and being invisible. I had a voice now, and I knew how to use it. 3 months later, our venue won an award for Best Event Management in the state. My general manager gave me a shout-out at the ceremony for my work in improving our fraud protection protocols. Julia got promoted. Claire and I stayed in touch. And Leah? Last I heard, she was still trying to sell off the extra monogrammed wedding favors. She never found out who forwarded me that email. I never told her. Some secrets deserve to stay buried. But I'll leave you with this. When people show you who they are, believe them. And when someone tries to make you feel small long enough, they forget how tall you might grow. I wasn't just in the frame anymore. I was holding the camera.